Yes guys, I'm Si, welcome to Cardiff City World, welcome back to the channel, thanks so much for joining me. Let's get into it as we look ahead to a massive weekend for the Bluebirds. But before we preview, before we go into the tactical showdown and the tweaks for the weekend, before we break down the key matchups and momentum swings, we go back. And we go back to Kenilworth Road because the first meeting between Cardiff City and Luton Town wasn't just about 3 points on the board. It was a tactical checkpoint, a development snapshot early in the season between two sides who'd been relegated, two big teams in the league, and it showed where Cardiff were in the moment, but also how they've evolved since. And that evolution under BBM has been fascinating and quite pleasant to watch. But it also showed where Luton were structurally, and more importantly for us at least, it showed a couple of individuals who have tilted the game and other games in our favour in Ruben Colwill, Chris Willock particularly, those two, but also quietly Kian Ashford had a good game in that one as well. But this isn't a preview, this is a foundational layer of building up to the previews, the tactical showdown and everything else that we do in the build up to the games. But let's go first and foremost, the game, the context, the control versus the chaos. Cardiff went to Kenilworth Road and they controlled possession, but control doesn't automatically mean you control the game. It was a controlled possession, but you can still control a game without the ball. And I think, there's a big difference. Cardiff came, they built through the phases, the centre-back split, the Ryan Whittle dropped in to create that sort of initial overload. Ruben occupied the left half space a lot of the time, with Willock holding width initially on that side, but then Ruben would float over to the other side and then Willock would drop into that half space. And Luton pressed situationally in that game. They were quite, it was not relentless by any means, but they were aggressive when triggers appeared or in certain areas. Early season, Cardiff was still kind of collaborating what they were trying to do under the manager, and certainly from a tempo point of view, I think 23rd of August we weren't quite at it, particularly away from home, in terms of the tempo of our play. But you could definitely see the patterns of play, you could definitely see the rotations, and you could definitely see what the manager was trying to do, but the speed probably wasn't quite there yet. That meant that this game was quite scrappy at times, and Luton didn't mind that, I don't think, on the day. That it's a very difficult place to go, and a scrappy game makes it even more, brings the crowd into it, etc. So I mentioned Ruben Colwill and Chris Willock earlier, and I wanted to have a little look at them specifically in this game because they were really important for Cardiff in this game. Ruben had the volume, he had some risk and responsibility, and when you go a bit deeper into it, he played 90 minutes, he had 6 shots, he had an XG of 0.73, expected assists of 0.35, which is a goal contribution XG, if you like, of 1.08. That's pretty elite. And it wasn't just about volume, it was about influence and territory. He had 72 touches, 7 touches inside the opposition box, 9 passes into the final third. He created 2 big chances. He had 3 out of 4 accurate long balls. He was very good in a very scrappy game. When Cardiff progressed through those central lanes, it went through him. And I think there's also a development element, a growth element to Ruben early in the season, because he won 44% of his ground duels. So it wasn't, great in every aspect. And that tells you that he was in physical contact constantly. This wasn't a passive involvement where he was on the fringe of the game. He was absorbing pressure in tight central areas, and he kept demanding the ball over and over and over again. And that matters because earlier versions of Ruben, a couple of years ago, they wouldn't have done that. They would drift in and out of games. This one was brave, and this was one of the early games, early signs of the Ruben where we were going to see leading this team. And under Brian Barry Murphy, he also put in 6 tackles, 9 recoveries and 7 defensive contributions. It's a pretty complete performance overall. Now, you compare that to now, and obviously we haven't got anything from him because he's injured and hopefully he'll be back. But you compare it as he's this season compared to the past seasons, There's a big difference. He's winning aerial duels. He's getting the ball. He's protecting the ball better. He's using his body better. He's taking that first initial contact. He initiates physical engagement a lot more than what he used to, instead of reacting to it. And yeah, look, I've been very, very impressed with his development arc under Brian Barry Murphy. And the sooner we can get him back in the squad, the better. Whether that'll be Luton remains to be seen. Chris Willock, on the other hand, these were the two guys for me, from an attacking sense, who were the difference in this game. Chris Willock was clinical. Now, you talk about decisiveness. This was Chris Willock at the start of the season as well, by the way. 89 minutes, 1 goal. He had a rating of 8.6 out of 10 on FootMob, which I don't pay that much attention to, but whatever. He had 33 out of 34 passes completed at a 97% accuracy from a winger is ridiculous. He looked after the ball, something special in this game. And it's massive. In a scrappy, physical, difficult away trip, it's huge to have players who can look after the ball. 4 out of 4 successful dribbles. 8 out of 8 successful ground duels. Dispossessed, 0 times. He was untouchable in possession. No, look, he didn't have loads and loads of touches, but his impact on the game was massive. He didn't give the ball away, and when he was able to, he created opportunities to take Cardiff City forward and put Luton under pressure. He waited for moments, and when they came, or when his moment came, he executed it. And the winning goal, it's not luck. He was sharp in a tight space, sharp movement, clean contact. His confidence. Now, you zoom out a little bit, he scored the winner in that game. That was in August. He is now currently in the best form I believe that he's been in a Cardiff City shirt over the last 2 seasons. He is fully confident. He's got that belief, and confidence compounds everything. If he can isolate the Luton fullbacks again, he'll believe he can get at them. He'll believe that he can hurt them, because that's psychological repetition, and players will have teams who they favour playing against, and opposition players who they think, I got the better of him. How can Chris Willock not go in to this game full of confidence? Never mind his recent form, which has been unreal. But this game, he didn't lose the ball. He just kept beating his man, kept hold of the ball, and he gets the winning goal. That psychological edge could be massive going into this. And then I wanted to make a little mention of Kian Ashford, because I thought he was really, really intelligent in this game. He doesn't dominate the headlines by any means, and at the moment he's out of the side, he's on the bench. But I tell you something, he's a really intelligent footballer, and he was really important in this game. He had 90 minutes, another one, 93% pass completion, 2 out of 4 successful dribbles, 2 out of 3 accurate crosses, 3 tackles, 6 recoveries. He held his wit, when to play, didn't overplay, didn't panic, and he tracks back consistently. And my thing I like about this performance from him and Willock, they didn't give the ball away. And when you're away from home, is so important. And when you look back on this game, it feels like a scruffy 1-0 away win, but we looked after the ball in important areas, and Kian was a big part of that. And I'm sure he'll come back into the side when the time is right, and his football IQ will shine again, because he's a very, very intelligent player. And that balance that he provided and Willock provided, it protected Cardiff from being overloaded in the transitions. And in an away game, that's massive, and that discipline from those players matters. Then you look at the physical story, the then v now. And I think this is where that evolution becomes quite clear. In the first meeting, Cardiff competed physically, but they didn't impose themselves physically. Ruben didn't win a lot of ground duels, but he competed in them. Ashford the same, I think, had 55%, I think it was, in his ground duels. So he didn't, dominate them. And maybe those two are not the players you expect to dominate them. Willock obviously was exceptional at 100% of his ground duels. But what I mean by it is, we didn't impose ourselves physically. We didn't overrun them physically. We competed physically, and then we let our technical side speak for ourselves by looking after the ball. It was definitely competitive physically, but but not dominant. And I think second balls can be messy at times. And I think something that we've got better at as the season's gone on is physicality and second balls. Now you compare that to Cardiff's current kind of setup and profile, is we're much more compact within our rest defence. We got a much better anticipation of where second balls are going to drop and when we're going to compete for them. The fullbacks are more measured in how they advance, when they advance. The spacing between the midfield and the back line is way tighter. And I think that we've talked about that before. The rest defence early in the season was scary at times, but now I think it's scary in another way. It's not as open. Early season Cardiff could survive physical games, but they were still getting used to it. Now I think we can control them, particularly at home. There's definitely a maturity which has entered with this team. But let's have a look at the tactical detail. And like I said, we have talked about Cardiff's rest defence and how it's changed from then to now. But one of the biggest vulnerabilities in that first game was our transition defence. Like when Cardiff lost the ball centrally, Luton attacked and they vacated their channels and they got at us very quickly. Especially if both fullbacks were high, Capaccio and Baker. Now actually both had good games in this game, but they get caught high, we were in trouble. We had a lot of 2v2 moments, which I think you don't necessarily want. Obviously the first rule of defending is +1. There were a lot of recovery sprints for these players. Now, Cardiff we stagger the fullbacks better. So if one goes, one stays. We have much more balance. The 6 is, Ryan Wintle screens everything. That structural awareness has definitely grown. You got Alex Robertson, who will go and stay and go and stay. Oh, now obviously, come Saturday, there is no Ryan Wintle, so you'd imagine it's probably going to be Robertson in the 6, and I hope Joel in the 8. But we might go with Turnbull for a bit more control. Who knows? But we're definitely going to see a rejig of that midfield. But what we mustn't lose is the rest defence that we've built up since before Christmas, because if we do, that's where Luton will eat us up. But against Luton, it was the transitional moments. They matter massively, and that's where I think we are going to have to be right on it. Alex Robertson's defensive numbers are exceptional. They're elite, but it is going to be a big job for him versus Luton because the partner's going to be different. He's going to have to do a real job. We're going to need another mammoth performance from Joel Colwill, I think, as well. Switching over to Luton, and we kind of look at their evolution since we played them in the first game. And look, it's been probably subtle rather than drastic, but I'm not going to preview the game and them really loads now because we do that later in the week. But under Jack Wilshere, there's been a visible change. They want to play football now. They're trying to build through the thirds more consistently. We saw it against Bradford recently. Casey Palmer, between the lines, was exceptional, outrageous, really real quality. Now, they are much braver in possession. They want to play and they want to build, and they're not just getting up to the strikers and play or playing on the transition and being just physical. They have struggled away from home, though. Away from Kenilworth Road, the press has been poor. The transition defence is a bit all over the place, and when games have become stretched, they look vulnerable. That's a pattern that Cardiff can build on, and Cardiff will look to pin them back and put them under pressure and hope they fold because their away form is not great. It's going to be an interesting game because it's a big game. What have we learned since that first meeting? Well, obviously Ruben drove a lot of the volume and the progression in the early moments in the season. He's not going to be available, you wouldn't think. Maybe a slim chance of him being on the bench, but we'll see what the manager says with his press conference. I don't think he'll be back, but you never know because Isaac's out, Salic is out, or Salic, I don't know about Salic, but Isaac is out, Wintle's banned. Maybe we see Scanlon, people like this take their chance, but Willock delivered the decisive quality. So what we need to see that quality from Chris Willock again. Ashford gave us real control. Will he get a start in this game? I find it very difficult to think we're going to drop Tanner or Willock at the moment. They're both in great form. And Ollie Tanner in particular, even when he's had difficult moments in game, he creates you chances, he gets you goals. You cannot drop him or Willock, in my opinion, at the moment. But this manager knows what he's doing, no doubt. The physical battle was competitive, but we were not dominant. The transition defence needed tightening. It has been tightened, but we have a different element to that now because we have no Ryan Wintle for this game. What we're going to change from the first game? Well, I don't want to give too much away from the preview and a tactical showdown, but look, Ruben's not there, so that's a big issue straight away from the first game. The tempo in the wide areas probably needs to increase a little bit. The counter press has got to be better when we lose the ball. Willock, we need to try and isolate him versus the fullbacks deliberately, and we need to get control of it and pin him back. But here's the key story from that first game. Chris Willock scored the winner in the first game. He's in form, he's confident, he's high, he's belief, and he's in much better form now than he was then. If the same scenarios present themselves, Chris Willock will do it again and history will repeat itself because he's in better form. In terms of the bigger picture, the first game, it wasn't flashy from Cardiff, but it was controlled chaos away from home. Yes, we were far too open on the transition. Yes, that's changed. But we developed and we've moved on and we've learned since then. Cardiff were midway through a transformation, if you like. It was so early in the season. We're much further along in a journey. We're top of the league. We're playing good stuff. We're defending well. We're much more physically and mentally mature, tactically secure. We need to have that ruthlessness in moments, just in case it is a tight game. But this weekend isn't about replicating that first game, because this game is going to be so different. It's about showing the evolution that we've had in the Brian Barry Murphy throughout the season, and it's about showing that we're the better football team. Brian Barry Murphy will have the plan. We will look at the preview and the tactical showdown later in the week, but this was the blueprint. This was the start of the build-up towards a big weekend for Cardiff and the chasing pack. Thank you so much, as always, for joining me for a look back at the first game. Of course, tomorrow we have some really interesting content. Well, tonight we've got me and Jamie live, and we'll be kind of looking towards the weekend. We've also got our preview tomorrow, the tactical showdown tomorrow night, which is a detailed tactical deep dive on the game and where it's going to go, where it could be won, where it could be lost. And then, of course, we'll have 3 big questions on Saturday morning before the game. Don't forget, yesterday or earlier in the week, we dropped the high stakes in the EFL or in League One video, which was really well received. We dropped a video yesterday on head injuries, particularly relevant to Cardiff City, with Yusuf Salic and Isaac Davis, and I took a deep dive into the guidance and the protocols that the clubs and the medical departments have to follow in order to get players cleared after a concussion, and why concussions are so serious. So that's a really interesting one, and I think it's something that all fans should be aware of. We've had loads of good content this week, as usual. Cardiff City, 7 days a week. It's what you want. Then this is the place for it. Keep the faith, and I'll see you tonight with Jamie. Nice one. This channel is powered by an incredible membership community on Cardiff City World and patreon.com/AcePodcastNation. Becoming a member unlocks exclusive rewards, from early access to live event tickets, bonus content, and even the occasional inside transfer scoop when we get it. But more importantly, it allows us to bring you top quality Cardiff City content 7 days a week. Across those 7 days, we're talking match previews, exclusive interviews, instant match reactions, the breakdown podcast, tactical deep dives, the spotlight series, Bluebirds Rewind, Academy Focus, and just so much more. Led by myself, backed by an army of passionate Cardiff City fans, this is content created by fans for fans. Balanced, professional, and 100% all about the club we all love. If you enjoy what we do, then join the community today and support what we are doing as we help to keep Cardiff City World flying high.